Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. Hopefully you enjoyed those jams like I did. They kind of feel like they belong on like the top 50 hits, but they're royalty free, we assure you. Hi, I am Rachel. I am so excited to be here. You're all in the right place if you join G2 office hours to learn about 5 G2 moves to power your growth this year. I'm super pumped to be joined by two of my favorite G2ers, probably the smartest people I know, Robin and Katlin. We all represent different areas of marketing on the G2 marketing team. I am G2's principal product marketer. I work on the partnerships and integration side of the house. And Robin and Katlin, I'll let you introduce yourself. Robin, do you want to start with you first?
Sure. Hey, Rachel. Hey, Caitlin. I'm Robin, Izsak-Tseng. I'm been at G2 2 years and 8 months or something. I head up the Rev marketing team, which is all the things you think about when it comes to digital channels, demand gen, ABM, field marketing, customer marketing. Also, Caitlin on the team. What else can I tell you? I live in Brooklyn. Caitlin and I are sadly Buffalo Bills fans, so we're still licking our wounds. But go ahead, Caitlin.
Yeah, deep sigh there. But Katlin Hess, I am the Director of Customer Marketing here at G2. Like Robin, I am a big Bills fan. I live in Buffalo, New York. But also like Robin, I was a G2 customer before I joined the team here. So we have literally sat where you're sitting. We have done the things you're doing, and really excited to share with you all some of the tips and tricks we've learned. Oh gosh, Sue, I'm in East Aurora, and yeah, double wide right trauma this year. Here we are. Back to you, Rachel.
I can't contribute to the football talk, but pour one out, I guess, for the Bills. Awesome. We'll cover just a few housekeeping things before we get started today. Hopefully we all know how to use the raise hand function on Zoom. This is, as you see everybody else's name here. This is not a one-directional webinar. We want this to be engaging and conversational. Feel free to come off video if you feel brave. I like to see when folks come off video, it puts a little face behind the name. Feel free to raise your hand on Zoom if you have a question, or put it in the chat. We will have some G2ers in the chat, or we can talk through those questions live. Anything for a follow-up, of course, all three of us are available on LinkedIn and everywhere you can find us. And as is always a question with webinars, recording will be available on our G2 office page afterwards, and we'll be sending everyone a thank you for joining, a little packet of additional resources, the slides from this presentation today, and some new resources that are pre-go-to-market. Also, plug for G2U. Great place to go deeper on your G2 knowledge, get certified in all things G2 and tools and tactics. If this is your first G2 office hours, like I said, they're designed to be conversational, and they're designed for modern marketers and sellers to really talk through strategies, best practices, and how to get the most out of your G2 subscription. So these conversations and all of these tips today are kind of assuming that most of you know what G2 is, hopefully. Hopefully you have a product profile on G2, and it is claimed, which means there's an admin on your profile. If that's not the case, don't drop. Of course, like, we will have information for you, but there might just be some context catch up that you might have to do afterwards, or we can help you with live as well today. But this kind of assumes that you have some context on G2. So if things are a little too deep for you, feel free to put questions in the chat. And today's topics, here are our 5 moves to make in 2024. It was super difficult to narrow it down to 5. So each one is pretty jam-packed, but the first is going to be focused on implementing an always-on review gen strategy. Second, building segments, refining your targets with buyer intent. Third, measuring and driving consistent success with integrations. Fourth, making your reviews work harder for you. And fifth, tracking attribution and measuring impact. It's not every day we have a session that we talk about reviews and buyer intent and profile and how to measure and garner ROI. So hopefully we get through everything today. I think I'm going to pass it off to Katlin for our first tip.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks so much. Really excited to be here. Like Rachel said, this is a jam-packed session. So we'll run through this pretty quickly, but we'll be sharing the recording and also these slides as well to sort of set the stage for all of these tips. Like Rachel mentioned, we're going to be talking about a few different areas of our product, but they all really feed each other. So the first here is amplifying the voice of your customer, which then helps power your pipeline and then inform your strategy. But really at the core of all of this is making sure that you're capturing authentic customer feedback, authentic customer voice via reviews. And so there are really 4 pillars of review collection. When you think about capturing reviews, you want to make sure you're doing these things. One is asking everyone for reviews. I know people can sometimes feel inclined to only ask those NPS 9 and 10s or only ask your advocates. But in doing that, you're really not capturing a true picture of your product or service. You're doing a disservice to people who are buying, who might be looking at your reviews. You're also doing a disservice to your team by not capturing customer feedback more broadly. And we'll talk a little bit about that later. Also making sure that you're asking for reviews consistently and asking for updates to your reviews. That really makes sure that your reviews are up to date. And then responding to reviews as well, making sure customers know that you take reviews seriously and that you're responding to the content of those. That's a really great way to not only build relationships with your current customers, but also to show prospects who might be looking at your page that you care about your customers, that you action on their feedback, that you take it seriously, which will also help sort of feed the flywheel of review collection. And so one of the reasons we talk about an always on review strategy, and we'll get into some diversified collection tactics here, is because 85% of consumers consider reviews more than 3 months old to be irrelevant. I know for myself as a customer marketer who is, currently and previously responsible for review collection, knowing that and knowing that I used to, ask quarterly right ahead of report season for reviews and see a spike and then not really come back to it until the next quarter, we were missing out on a lot of opportunities. And so when you think about review collection, having a diversified strategy helps make sure those reviews stay relevant, make sure that you're capturing a broad range of reviews, make sure that you're capturing reviews at different touch points in the life cycle so you can get real feedback from your customers at various points in their journey with you. And so these are sort of 5 ways to collect reviews. The first one here is sort of the most used card. It's those campaigns. It's building a landing page. It's having G2 send a campaign or running your own campaign to capture reviews. But really there's a lot more tools available to you, especially for those of you who are G2 customers on the review growth or essentials package or above. In-app reviews, Rachel will talk a little bit about this and we'll dig in deeper here, but really a great way to capture customer feedback when they're actively thinking about you and your product because they're in the product. What I love about these is that it's a truly set it and forget it type thing. And also it's a shorter review form and the customer doesn't have to leave your product. They don't have to go through the additional authentication process because they're in your product. We know that they're a real user of your product. And so we have 3 ways you can do that. I'll talk about that in a little bit here. Same thing with our customized API that lives in app for you. And so it's a really easy way, again, to capture that reviews. In partnership with our team, we have a dedicated G2 team that will help you run some of those campaigns as a customer. And then also in-person review booths is another really great way to capture feedback from customers when they are actively, again, thinking about your product, when they're super engaged. And we can either help you set that up. It's a service that we offer as an add-on, or something that I've also seen customers just sort of do themselves. I talked to a customer yesterday, and she said at their user conference, it was 2 of them just sitting there with laptops, and they set up a custom landing page specific for that event. And they were able to double their total review number just at that event. So really great way, you know, I don't know if we'll ever be post-COVID, but as we're getting to in-person events again, a great opportunity to ask for reviews. Some other really great ways to ask for reviews, or great places to ask for reviews, time to ask for reviews. After implementation, again, customers are super engaged with you. They just had a really specific experience. It's an awesome way to capture feedback from your newest customers and learn how was that implementation for them. Same thing about renewals or QBRs. So asking a customer after they just sat through a session, kind of highlighting, here's what our relationship looks like. Here are some of the successes you've seen. Great time to ask for reviews during webinars or at events. So if anyone here is a G2 customer and would love to see your reviews for G2 on g2.com, we can probably drop a link in here later. And then after a support ticket or following an NPS or CSAT response, if they were willing to give you feedback in those places, good chance they'd be willing to give you feedback on G2. In product pop-ups, we talked about on your sign-in screen, another great place to catch people through any of your partner networks, outreach from your team, direct one-to-one outreach from the CSMs or RMs. You can run contests. You can just make it an all-company initiative in your email signature, in your customer community, or through your customer newsletter. My pro tips here are around review accelerators. So we talked a lot about that in-app experience. We have 3 ways to implement in-app asks. One is via widgets, which are, you can find those in the back end of my.g2. Another is through integrations. Rachel will talk a little bit about these, but we have customers using Pendo, Medallia, Delighted, or HubSpot to capture feedback today. Making the connection to G2 is pretty quick and simple, and an easy way to get that up and running fast. And then we also offer an in-app API. And so this is custom to your product. It's a little bit of a heavier lift, but most people have that up and running within a week. We will work with your product team to make sure that all of that's connected properly. So those are 3 ways to accelerate review growth. But if those feel like too much and you're like, how can I get started right away today? I'm just a marketer. Our Review Us button is available now. You can add this to pretty much any web page, landing page, and it will just streamline your review process and make it so you can capture reviews anywhere. So that was a super quick overview of building a diversified review gen strategy. We do have other sessions that go into this more in depth, but if there's one thing you take away from this today, it's making sure that you're asking for reviews, not just those once per quarter, but thinking about ways you can incorporate into your customer journey. And with that, I will pass it off to Robin.
Well, thank you, Caitlin. I was frantically typing in the chat, so now I'll just say this out loud to close off your awesome segment on reviews. Team G2, like your account team, can help you launch a review campaign also in alignment with G2 Gives. So if you want to, we're coming up on like Black History Month. If you want to align a review strategy with something that also gives back to an organization that you want to stand behind and support, you can do that too, which is one of my favorite moves as a former customer also. So now let's get into buyer intent. So I guess as a sort of demand gen person myself, this is really like my world, and where I think that we can really do so much when we target the people that we know are in market for a solution like ours. So if we pull back for a second and just look at what powers G2 buyer intent, it's the over 90 million visits per year we get worldwide to G2. So that's an insane amount of traffic, obviously. And a lot of it is driven through our really amazing SEO team headed up by Ross, where, if you're a person sitting in Buffalo, New York, watching the Bills lose to the Chiefs and it's halftime and you're Googling like, I need to buy project management software for my, I don't know, niche company. You're going to start Googling and you'll probably land on the G2 category for project management software. And you'll see in that category things like Rike and Trello and Airtable and Asana and Monday, and you'll start comparing the solutions and figure out what's best for your business. And that's the flywheel that sort of powers G2 buyer intent. So just a quick reminder for folks that maybe don't know, G2 buyer intent means that we can show you who the companies that are on G2 searching you, that are looking at your product listing on G2 or your category, or comparing you to your competitors. So to follow the project management thread, if I'm on the marketing team at Asana, I probably want to know who's on G2 comparing me to Monday or to Trello or to Rike. And then I want to find ways to retarget those people. Maybe I want my BDR team to be able to prioritize their account outreach. I know Casey, our head of the BDR program, is on this call. He's amazing at this and can speak to this also. But I've kind of been saying lately, there should be no such thing as cold outreach anymore, right? It's over, it's 2024. Intent data can show us who's looking, and G2 buyer intent is very kind of middle of the funnel in that it's folks that are on G2 searching for solutions like yours. And so that it's kind of, I always also like to say it's sort of up to you what you do with that. We have powerful integrations that can really fuel your digital outreach. So if you're already spending money, if you're already investing in LinkedIn advertising, turning on, and you already have G2 buyer intent, that is a no-brainer. Like it's 5 minutes to set up that integration and start retargeting the personas at the accounts that are showing intent on G2. So if you're targeting IT or you're targeting HR professionals, set those filters and start in real time retargeting the accounts that are looking at you on LinkedIn. Same thing if you're using Demandbase or Rollworks for display, we use that here. So we kind of look at display advertising as a really cost-effective brand play. It's not where we expect like lead gen, but we love to keep G2 top of mind through display ads and things that bring people back to microsites and feasting on our content and watching our videos, but not really looking at that as a lead gen channel. But it becomes that much more efficient and powerful when you're using it to retarget people that are showing interest on G2. And then LinkedIn, of course, is where we're able to really kind of use ABM playbooks. If you're in, I know so many of us on this call are either doing ABM or thinking about doing ABM, but what a great way to really power those campaigns and pull that data into your paid advertising strategies, into Salesforce, where you can enhance, the account view of who's showing intent on G2 and things like that. So much there on the marketing side that we can get into. Another real life sort of use case here is that we're enhancing our lead scoring. A lot of people have lead scoring and things like that built out in HubSpot. We're doing it in Marketo, same thing, but we're just using it as another data point to enhance our contact and account scoring model. And then you can even pipe it into things like SalesLoft and outreach and think about ways to trigger more targeted outreach to from your SDR, your BDR team. So lots you can do there. Too much to cover in this segment. For sales, we have Casey here, like I mentioned. We love our Slack integration internally. If I'm going to do like a kind of a G2 on G2 moment, that Slack channel that we have is a favorite where, Casey and team are in there. Our demand gen team is in there, and we're really looking at signals coming into Slack in real time. And you can also filter that. So if you're worried about like too much noise, I don't want to put all of this in front of my sales team or in front of my Katlin, in front of my customer success team, if you're using it to reduce churn, which we'll talk about in a sec. But you hear that a lot, like it's too much noise, there's too much volume. Just set the filters so that people are looking at the accounts they care about, or the territories that they care about, or the company sizes, or the industries that they care about. And then when you see the signal come into Slack, you can click through, and I can share my screen and show you what this looks like in a few minutes. But then you're kind of in the anatomy of the buyer intent signal, and you can see the whole history of what, let's say it's Warby Parker is on G2 looking for project management solutions. You can see the whole history of what folks at Warby Parker were looking at. Are they comparing Monday to Trello or Airtable or whatever it is? And then you can see their stack data. You can see who you should reach out to at Warby Parker, but we'll get into all of that in more detail. So super powerful. I know Casey is here and believes like when you have tools like these, there's no such thing as cold outreach. The whole BDR team can be using this to kind of prioritize their accounts. Right, Casey? You want to come off mute?
That's right. Warm outreach.
Yeah, that's right. Warm outreach, maybe even blazingly hot, depending on we also pull in signals. Are they looking at your pricing page on G2? Because if you have your G2 profile built out pretty robustly, you can also add pricing. And if somebody's on your pricing page on G2, like that's gold, right? I mean, you're nuts if you leave that on the table. So the marketing team can be retargeting these in digital channels, being really smart about lead scoring and account scoring to kind of hit that marketing qualified account score. And then your BDRs and sales teams can be using all these integrations to prioritize accounts and not be doing cold outreach. And then the third thing really quickly is, think about Katlin and I actually did a little video on this where it's like you have customers, and if we have people on this call who do not care about like reducing churn and opportunities for expansion that aren't focused on that also as part of their whole kind of growth strategy, then honestly, I'm not really too sure what you're doing. But I mean, get ahead of churn. Katlin shared from when she was a customer, like 6 months before renewal, make sure that you're using those G2 buyer intent signals to see, like, is one of my customers, researching on G2? Are they comparing me to a competitor? That's a possibly scary signal, and you can really head that off at the pass, reach out, check on the health of the account. That's what we should all be doing. It's a best practice. And then it's also a great way to identify upsell opportunities. So if you have a customer, they might even be happy. Assume they are happy, but maybe they're on G2 and they're looking at this one versus that one because you have some functionality that they didn't know about. And in 2024, if we're not also thinking about tech consolidation being a real thing, once again, I'm not sure what we're doing. I mean, people are looking for ways to consolidate tech bloat. And so if you have customers that are looking for core functionalities and things that you offer, that's another reason to have a conversation and get in and talk to them and make sure that they know about all the great stuff you have to offer and ways that you can, displace the competition because you also offer that functionality. Did I miss anything? Katlin, Rachel, Casey, is that a good synopsis?
Yeah, I think you nailed it. And
Crushed
I'm
it.
going to put this in the chat, but our next month's office hours are actually specifically related to leveraging buyer intent to grow with your customers and prevent churn. So we'll dig into that more too.
Yeah, awesome. Awesome. What's on the next slide?
Your demo.
Oh, is this where I share my screen?
Yeah,
Okay, I
this
have to
this
turn
one is
Slack
one
back
that
on
we have.
because I turned it off because my laptop is so crummy these days. Okay, let me pull a couple of examples here. I have something ready to go. I'm going to share my screen. And this is kind of the goodness in real life. You don't really need to see my Google sign in. Okay, so this is my real life, very noisy Slack situation. We have a product at G2 called G2 Track. It actually targets an IT audience, so it's a little different than the marketing solutions that we're talking about today. But this is what the Slack integration looks like. This is what you're pulling in real time. Again, this is for our product called G2 Track. So you can see we have a signal coming in from Demand Science. They're headquartered in the US, in Massachusetts. The visitor is also located in Massachusetts. And they're looking at alternatives and competitors for Flexera One, which is a product that competes with G2 Track. So on the G2 Track team and responsible for some demand gen, I want to make sure that I'm retargeting the right IT audience at Flexera One, because I know that they're comparing us to, at Demand Science, because I know they're comparing us to Flexera. And the same thing with PagerDuty. This is a signal that came in earlier today. If I click through my G2, sorry, I have to log in. Now you'll see my son and my daughter and everybody's school logins from my work laptop. Good job, Robin. But this is what kind of the anatomy of the buyer intent signal looks like. So this is PagerDuty. They were on G2 as recently as today, looking at Vertice, Observe, Productive, Vendor. Now, these are all our competitors, our G2 Track competitors in the category. So this is like very high probably intent from PagerDuty that they're definitely shopping for a solution like G2 Track. And we can also see their stack data. So this is PagerDuty's technographic data included in the buyer intent signal. And then also now through our new integration with ZoomInfo, which I have turned on, you don't even have to have, right, Rachel, you don't even have to have like a ZoomInfo license. You can turn this on through my G2 and you can get 50 free contacts a month from ZoomInfo. So I have this filtered for IT type job titles because that's who we're targeting with G2 Track. And then if I want to reveal these folks and download them, I can do that and put that kind of like over to Casey into sales. So it's a really powerful bunch of data within one G2 buyer intent signal. So I'm going to stop sharing here. And definitely if anybody has questions on what they're seeing here, that's actually the company I came from. So look at that. And I just, as a demand gen person, as a sales professional, a business development person, even customer success, to me, this is one of the most powerful things you can do to move the needle and be pretty efficient and targeted in your outreach.
Awesome, thank you. I was typing feverishly as well to respond to questions, but Jeff, I will get back to your questions in more depth, but just to answer your second question, Jeffrey, buyer intent is an add-on, well, it's a plan of itself with G2. So if you're just paying for an upgraded profile, for example, you won't be getting this buyer intent data. So you may be you're still capturing all of the traffic and the users that are coming, and you can see some of those high-level insights of how many visits your profile is getting and things like that. But the buyer intent data is an add-on to be able to see which companies are actually doing that research. So any G2er, feel free to expand on that in the chat with Jeffrey. And let's see. I'm going to just answer some of these questions because they are related to integrations. And before we get into the greater story, you can share this information, Martha, with anyone in your organization. So you can set up Slack notifications. I can actually go into the back end and show Slack setup. You can choose who it goes to. You create a channel with essentially a name where it can be just 3 people on an account team, or a pod, we call them. And all of their account notifications can go directly to those 3 people. There's also a new function where you can have these notifications tag an individual person to notify them. That's a new feature that we just added on because it was very highly requested, which I think is so cool. Yes, Sue, Robin did do a run through of both Slack and Zoom Info integrations. We can talk about what they individually look like inside of my G2 and how to separate them out. Thank you so much for your questions, everyone.
Yeah. And also just to tag on to that, like we do have an amazing marketing operations team, but I set up these integrations like myself in 5 minutes, and anyone that has access to my G2, my.g2.com that has admin access can do that, or you can do it for them. Like if it's sales and you want to help them set up their filters so that they're pulling in buyer intent signals just for their region or whatever makes sense, you can help them with that. You don't have to be like a marketing operations, ninja. It's really easy and it's so powerful.
Awesome. Thank you. So it's very clear it's difficult to talk about having success with G2 without mentioning integrations, right? At the end of the day, G2 is a workflow tool, meaning that it's only going to be as powerful as the workflows it's applied to. Of course, we have an amazing UI, as Robin just showed. And if you don't have some of these tools in your stack, you can still get all of that information and glean these insights inside of our UI. But really the success and the ability to measure ROI from beginning to end, so from G2 intent signal all the way to revenue, comes when our data and tools are integrated into existing tools and workflows and platforms. So this is an overview of the ecosystem that G2 has built. It's kind of the secret sauce behind making our customers successful and helping them grow and drive ROI. So every platform you see on this slide has a unique partnership with G2 to make our application of the data more seamless into the tools that your marketing and sales and customer teams, like we've talked about, use. So if you're in the boat of, I know G2 is cool and I know everybody should care about it, but it's difficult to get buy-in from other teams, integrations can be an amazing way for you to essentially just put this data in front of them and have it show up in some of the tools that they are living in all day long. Gong, for example, turn on the integration, your sales teams will actually start to see active deals that they're working, and they'll see touch points where an active opportunity is visiting G2 and looking at their comparison pages or looking at their pricing pages throughout the active deal cycle. Of course, it doesn't necessarily do the work for you in enabling them, but just surfacing it and raising that awareness and building that visibility of G2 in front of the teams that might be more difficult to get on board integrations are a great way to do that. So I'll also, before we move on, call attention quickly to this section that says G2 syndication. One of the lesser known things about G2 partnerships is that many other leading marketplaces, including AWS Marketplace and Microsoft Azure, they trust G2 to power their reviews. So when you work hard to collect your reviews and get them on G2, they can reach millions more buyers by showing up in the AWS Marketplace as well. So if you're investing in this review strategy, we like to say kind of no review works harder for you than a G2 review, because they're showing up in more places than just the G2 Marketplace.
I do feel like a lot of people don't know that, Rachel. So it's kind of like one more time for the folks in the back, like your G2 reviews are being populated onto AWS Marketplace, Azure, like Rachel said, all these marketplaces that are listed here. So that's huge. So one G2 review isn't just on G2, it's on all of these marketplaces where people are shopping. So it's just another such a strong reason to really like put some intent into your review strategy for sure and get that going.
Yeah, it builds the trust and the credibility on your other marketplace listings. We actually know that profiles on AWS that have G2 reviews transact at a higher percentage than profiles without them. So it's, we're all trying to drive revenue through the AWS marketplace. So it's super interesting. Across the whole landscape, though, of course, there's a range of simple and complex to integrate, as well as a spectrum of value that our integrations offer for many reasons. It mostly starts with what you're trying to do. So if you are a team of one, there are going to be some no-brainer integrations like the ones Robin mentioned to turn on that will help you get the most out of your subscription. If you're trying to drive marketing campaign efficiency or increase the adoption of your sales team to use account intelligence data, or even want to help sales prioritize the new list of target accounts that they got for the year and understand which ones are actively in market right now. These are the ones of the new 5,000 target account list that you should go after. Something our team, of course, is working on, and many are because it's a new fiscal year. Intent data can help you, and G2 can help you prioritize those efforts. So I saw a lot of questions in the chat around some of these integrations. I think maybe it makes sense to go into the back end and show potentially how you would set up these Slack notifications and how you would set up this ZoomInfo integration for free, the free one. I'm happy to do that, but I just wanted to pause for any questions to see if there are other platforms that people want to call out and understand more of what those integrations might look like. Cool.
I do think it's kind of important to point out that some of our integrations really help with like review collection, like Pendo and Delighted, and some are really more focused on buyer intent. But the one that is on the first column, Chili Piper, is interesting because that one, if you use G2, and this isn't even a buyer intent one, this is, I think, just if you have like an upgraded G2 profile, just the most basic core package, and you have Chili Piper, you can put a, book directly meeting, call to action on your G2 product page. So for folks that are there and looking at your product on G2, you probably do want to capture that, not with just your standard like request a demo, but like book a meeting now. And you can set that up with Chili Piper and also put some filters in place to make sure that you're getting some qualified stuff coming in, but that's another super easy integration to turn on that's more on the demand gen side, but isn't necessarily tied to buyer intent. That's right there on your product profile.
Yep. I'm seeing a lot of questions also about Teams in the chat. So we don't currently have an active integration with Microsoft Teams in the same way that we have with Slack. For recommendation I would make there is set up email notifications to get notified. So it's the same kind of functionality. The notification just goes to your inbox, and you can filter it in similar ways, or there might be a Zapier integration that's available with Microsoft Teams. I work on the official integrations side of the house, so I don't know what that Zapier would look like, but it might be other options to explore if you want those real-time notifications. Does it make sense for me to kind of steal the screen for a second and go into the back end to show how to set up Slack?
Yeah, let's do it.
Cool.
Yeah.
I will do that. Okay. So, is everyone seeing what you're supposed to be seeing?
Mm-hmm.
Looks good.
Yeah. Okay. I'm like nervous. I have so many tabs open. So you are seeing the Slack in the integration hub? Okay, great. Awesome. So I got here, I'm in the G2 Marketing Solutions admin profile. Again, all you need to do is create a login on my G2 and have an upgraded profile with G2. So something really interesting about the Slack integration, you can get notified when a new review is posted to a profile, and you can also get notified when buyer intent signals come in. They're two very different things, but something that I think is sort of an integration hack with our reviews integration is if you want to get notified for a competitor receiving a low star rating so that you can kind of opportunistically seek out a prospect who might have left that review not anonymously, you can set up review notifications to know when your competitors are getting maybe a star rating between 0 and 3. For both of these Slack notifications, the first step is going to be create a channel in your Slack just to have these notifications be sent to. And then when you've gotten that kind of figured out, the authentication process will go into the buyer intent is essentially I'm not going to remove authentication, but you just log into your Slack through the My G2 instance, and then it will look like this. So inside of buyer intent, some of the notifications that you can set up, like I said, you can get as specific or as broad as you want. In some cases, maybe you want to get a notification every time you see a buyer intent signal come in, and you want to see every single account that's showing any type of interest. That's totally fine. All you'd have to do is turn it on to activate. Don't select everything in these options, and then just set it live. Just click on save. But to get more specific, you can upload a target account list. So this is especially interesting for customer teams. If they have a few renewals coming up, like Robin and Caitlin were saying, you can copy and paste the domain of the folks who have renewals coming up and get notified if they're looking for specifically alternatives to your tools or anything relevant. You can filter by demographics. So of course, most of us have an ICP, hopefully. That's what it's called, demographics here, but it's actually more firmographics, aligned to what type of companies that are interesting to you. You can include or exclude certain types of industries. So if you don't sell into education, or if you don't sell into airlines, this industries filter, I would say be broader in this than more specific, because of course you want to catch as much data as possible. Going down to organization activity, this is based on G2's buyer intent signals. So if you want to know which accounts are in awareness, consideration, or decision stage on G2, or are researching your pricing or your profile, these are all the buyer intent signals that you can filter for and surface notifications inside of Slack for in near real time. Another thing about kind of Slack noise, I think if you are a user of one of these instant messaging tools, noise can be kind of overwhelming. While activity is happening in real time, you won't get a message for every single one. What happens is it aggregates all of the activity into the last hour, or from the last hour, and then sends notifications on an hourly basis. And then lastly, for folks who are listed on multiple categories, maybe your sales team is only focused on selling one, is like verticalized, or is only focused on selling one product, you can select the category that's relevant to the person who you're sending these notifications, person or people who you're sending these notifications to. Also, G2 Stack is integrated with our Slack integration. So the TLDR of this is that it shows technographic data for the accounts that are doing research on you and showing intent on you. So if you have a very complementary solution to HubSpot, for example, maybe you're a HubSpot system implementer and you have a profile on G2 and you really only care to reach out to the folks that have HubSpot, then you can select that as a tool inside of your notification set. So you're getting those very specific alerts when accounts have HubSpot as an active tool in their stack. And then this is where you'll select the Slack channel. So like I said, you just have to set up the Slack channel. Our integration pulls in via API all of the channels that are actively or accessible in your company's workspace, I think it's called, via Slack. And so you would just scroll down and find the one that you named G2 intent notifications, North America, or whatever that specific type of alert you're setting up. And then lastly, if you're doing a very niche type of setup here, you can tag individual users. So if you have like a BDR team who's really only interested in prospecting into like 10 enterprise accounts, and they want to know when those 10 enterprise accounts are showing interest, you can tag those users when those accounts are showing intent on G2. So that was a lot. I'll
Rachel,
pause there.
I do just want to, this is a great demo, but for Stack also, like imagine, you're in a category that competes with like Greenhouse, like an applicant tracking type software. And now you can pull in, like, I want to see people who have greenhouse in their stack because I want to run campaigns and outreach that speaks to, maybe why us over greenhouse. So powerful. And the company I came from before G2, stack data was so important to us that it actually informed our account tiering system. So for us, like G Suite over Microsoft, 365 was a great signal. So G2 didn't offer, this stack data, this technographic data when I was a customer, but if they did, we would have used this like crazy to target the people that had the right apps in their stack that were a good fit for our solutions. So I think it's incredibly powerful. And the stack data is coming through not only in Slack, but you can also retarget on LinkedIn. So that integration, this technographic data also works with LinkedIn and HubSpot in addition to pulling it into Slack. So really powerful.
Awesome. Okay, I think we're running tight on time, so I don't want to go too in the weeds on the next ones. But the setup for our Zoom info is you set up the same type of filters, and it will send you contacts alongside your buyer intent notifications as Robin was demoing before. So recommended contacts in your ICP, if you are selling into revenue operations or marketing operations personas, you can specify that persona, and through Zoom info, they will populate as options for you to reveal. They're kind of like credits, and you can select which contacts you want to reveal, and you get 50 of them per month, can export them into a CSV at the end of the month. So there's plenty of use cases that we've talked about today. I think I just wanted to call attention to a new asset you'll all be getting in your inbox at the end of this when we send out our follow-up. If you're at the point of, okay, I have integration set up, but like, what do I actually do? Now what? How do I apply them? G2 action plans are a new asset that we're offering, and they're designed to provide you with step-by-step guidance on how to use G2 to achieve specific goals. So this one you see here is bringing intent data into your outbound sales to, of course, increase response rates and lead to more sales conversions and open opportunities. We have an overview of those workflows, and then all of the complementary information. Who should be involved in the room to set up the integrations, how to think about setting up ROI and attribution to G2, so you're not scrambling after the fact to prove to your boss that this was successful, but we don't have the numbers to really prove it. There's information inside of these action plans to set that attribution up. And so they will be sent out afterwards with our follow-up. So if your email was put in accurately, you'll be getting them in the next couple of days.
Awesome. I also just pinged Erin to see if she can drop the link in the chat here for people who want to see these sooner, but they will definitely be included in the follow-up as well. Awesome. We have just about 10 minutes left, so I'm going to spend 5 talking about making your reviews work harder for you, but definitely check out the details in the slide deck we'll share after. One of the things I just want to make sure I call out is a lot of times we think about reviews as a marketing activity or sometimes a customer marketing activity. And really, it should be an all company activity. And review content is so powerful beyond just using them in your marketing campaigns. Really, other pathways for reviews, and I saw a little bit of this in the chat as well, is just other ways you're sharing those reviews internally. Customer service, I feel like being able to share customer feedback that they're posting publicly, whether it's good or bad, about your customer service team is a great thing to share with that team as well. Operations teams, they're always looking for feedback. They want to know, are things working the way we expect them to be working? Are people running into friction points at certain, points in their customer journey? So reviews with specific feedback on their experience are super, super helpful to this group. It's another way to capture customer feedback without having to send out another survey or to ask another question. You're getting that feedback, and if you're only using them in marketing or you're only leaving them on G2, you're sort of missing out on actioning them from an internal perspective. The same with product functionality. I did a presentation like this with one of our directors of product management, and she was like, I love review content because it tells me if what I'm rolling out is actually working for our customers. It's a great place to capture customer feedback. It's a great place to engage with customers. If you have product feedback there, have your product team respond to that review, build that connection right away. And then finally, documentation. If you're seeing themes around like, this product is great, but I always have trouble with this. Is there an opportunity to create some documentation to help with that specific use case or to get people sort of over that hump? And one of the ways to sort of get everyone excited about these reviews to make sure that other teams are understanding what the content of these reviews are. I like to say sharing feedback internally, but like making sure they understand that these are real customers. These are customers leaving a public review on your behalf. And so it is super powerful, really valuable content. Also sharing those reviews internally. I feel like sometimes you can fall into I'm only sharing the 3-star reviews because they gave actionable feedback, or I'm only sharing this one with the product team because it mentions a specific product function. But I think sharing both positive and negative reviews can be super exciting for internal teams. One of my favorite campaigns, I think it was Sprout Social. They actually took their reviews and had their product team read the review content and celebrated them and celebrated some of the great things that the product team had worked on that customers were leveraging and seeing a lot of success with. And so I saw someone mention this in the chat, but you can set up the Slack channel for this purpose as well. You can have it notify or be open to everyone, and all of that review content comes in. My favorite thing is when those reviews come in and you go in and tag the CSM or you tag the product manager as a way to just get people excited about that. And then I won't spend too much time here. I know we have a lot of content and I want to make sure we get to tracking and attribution. But there's a lot of really great examples of customers of G2 who take that review content and they leverage it across their marketing channels, whether it's social or on product pages, in nurture campaigns. I'm probably biased because I'm in customer marketing, but I feel like there's nothing more valuable than the voice of your customers. And with your G2 review content, it's not just a curated case study. It's not just a curated testimonial. It's actual feedback that was left publicly on a authenticated source. And I think there's a lot of power in leveraging that in your marketing content. 2 pro tips, and we'll cover these really quickly. Again, if you're in customer marketing, you're probably being asked for references, or you're building an advocacy program, or you're trying to create customer stories. One cool feature that I feel like is sort of an unsung hero feature in my.G2 are references from reviews. So every time someone leaves a review, there is an additional question that says, would you be willing to be a reference for this company? They just check that box. On the back end, in your my.G2, you can see all of these references available. You can actually download a CSV with their email addresses and reach out to those customers. Those are a great group to reach out to as you're building advocacy programs, as you're developing customer stories, but also to populate another sort of unsung feature, which is reference pages. And so I always come at this from a customer marketing perspective of like, how many times have you been asked for, do you have a specific case study from an enterprise account in the finance industry that's using this specific product? And I don't think anyone will ever get to the point where they have a case study for every specific use case. But if you're capturing a lot of reviews, you could potentially have a goldmine in customer content for that specific industry. So you can create a reference page from any of your reviews. This is all right within my.G2. Robin and I were talking about this earlier. You don't have to reach out to the design team. You don't have to reach out to your web team. You can build this completely and totally from the back end, pulling review content, and then leverage those in one-to-one conversations, in paid campaigns, on landing pages, things like that.
It's huge. It's just to put it in like demand gen speak, it's like it's a landing page that you can create by logging into my G2, going to reference pages, kind of filtering and curating from the reviews that you like, you know, the points that you really want to put out there. And just like that, you have a live landing page with UTM tracking that you can put in your email signatures for your sales team, for your, you know, on your website, in digital campaigns to retarget people across LinkedIn and display into email nurture campaigns. It's really powerful and it's so easy. So start tinkering with that right away.
Yeah, awesome. And with that, I'll pass it off to you, Robin, to bring us home. Last couple
Oh,
minutes.
okay. Well, this is a lot. Like attribution is kind of a big deal. And I know it's top of mind for everyone. We all feel it. Proving ROI is definitely a realer thing than ever. But if you could advance the slide. I think that with G2, I do want to leave you with a couple of important things because we're pretty much at time, and then you'll get these slides and you can always reach out to me or Caitlin or Rachel or Casey. And, you know, we're always happy to like walk through any of this with you in more detail. But G2 has a feature called Track My Prospects. And for anybody that's ever asked, like how much traffic is really coming to my G2 page? And does anyone actually go back to my website from G2? Track your prospects is the thing that's going to show you that very clear picture of how much traffic and kind of back and forth from G2 to your website. So it's another kind of like no-brainer move. And then anything else you need to do to prove ROI, if you advance the slide really quickly, you know, you do want to understand like inbound traffic patterns, like stuff coming to your website or to your landing pages. At my last company, we used Unbounce to create like really great looking landing pages really quickly. And then we would use them in all of our digital campaigns. And sometimes we just used those to push buyer intent traffic. Like, let's see how this performs actually. Let's retarget, you know, folks that are on G2 comparing our solution to our competitors, looking at the category, looking at us, and then push them to an unbounced landing page that's receiving only traffic from G2. And that'll really tell you like, you know, maybe it's not a question at that point of like quantity, but it really is more quality. Those people will convert. They're going to want to engage with your content. Over time, start to request demos, things like that. So really, really, really powerful. And then if you advance the slide, because now it's 2 o'clock. Was that the last slide? I know we had one that was keep going.
Oh, I skipped over those to get to
Oh,
track
okay.
prospects.
I just want to go through this super quickly because it's a little like a lot to digest. So if you're interested in this and you get the deck in the follow-up email, just know that the stuff on the left here is traffic being pushed into G2, the dark blue stuff, and on the right, it's actions you can take after. So that's kind of the way to look at this slide, is sort of a playbook. And then the next slide, I think, is similar view of what's coming to your profile and what you can do sort of off G2 and offline to track and report on the ROI. And then we can always get into more detail on UTM parameters and what you can push into Salesforce. And we also have a past office hours with our marketing operations mastermind, who talked in a lot of detail about how to set up G2 campaigns for attribution. And I think I'm going to stop now, but happy to get into more detail if anyone wants to reach out.
Yeah, there's one question in the chat here. If we have a few minutes to hold on.
About TMs?
And also how we're retargeting people from G2.
How are we doing it? So we do it, and I've done this in my past as a customer also. We have the LinkedIn. If you're, like I said before, if you're investing in LinkedIn advertising, it's such a powerful integration to turn on so that you're retargeting G2 buyer intent signals on LinkedIn. And then you can use G2 filtering for what you're pushing into LinkedIn. And then on the LinkedIn side, you can set filters around like job title, job function, and really start to A/B test those. But it's an amazingly powerful integration. We also use Rollworks here, so we use that integration to push G2 buyer intent into our display advertising strategy. And we don't use display for lead gen. We really use it as a cost-effective way to kind of warm up an audience. So in an ABM playbook, that would look like you have your target accounts, right? And maybe you just sort of want to start warming them up with like display and things that push people back to landing pages, back to microsites, back to your website, whatever you want to do to start building that engagement, warming them up in a pretty cost-effective way, and then start moving down funnel with more like sort of demo requests and things that would be more about lead gen. I'm trying to answer all this really quickly, but that's just sort of one example of how we use it here. Was
Awesome.
that helpful? Does anybody, and feel free to come off mute too, just you know.
I wanted to, Angela, talk directly to you about your question in the Slack notifications for your review, for your profile. I am noticing that you didn't have a Slack channel selected to send the notifications to. So I think that might help solve your problem. If you go into your admin. Sorry.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Are you able to hear me? Yes. So I did have it selected, but it keeps going back to that.
I see. Okay. So we'll open a support ticket. That's probably the issue. And also I see 3 different products that are selected, but I don't know if the threat down one is added as a product. So no,
threat down is the name of the company. So I was doing EDR, MDR, and EPP.
Great. Got it. Okay. That's great. That's helpful information. I think maybe we will need to open a support ticket for why the Slack channel isn't pulling in. My only recommendation I would
It's kind of a funny one.
Yeah, offer right now is maybe just like deactivate it and then re-sign back in, and try like the whole turn it off and turn it back on trick. But
Yes.
yeah. Thank you for your question though. And
I
will reach out to your account manager to let them know that you asked.
Awesome. So to sort of close us out, thanks to all of you for joining, especially this crew who hung on to the bitter end here. A few more resources for you. As I think we mentioned at the very beginning, G2 University, you can get certified on things like buyer intent, on our marketing solutions. Check that out for more in-depth walkthroughs too on some of the best practices we talked about here. And then, as always, join us for an upcoming office hour session. So as we talked about this, we next month will be talking about how to leverage buyer intent for growing with your customers and preventing churn. The following month, we'll talk about optimizing your profile. So a lot of really great content here. And I see, Angela, a suggestion, ROI measurement for reviews. That's actually what we're planning for April. So spot on request there. And we'll have a lot more content to come. And we'll share all of this slide deck recording via email with everyone who registered. So thanks everybody for attending. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks all.